I would like to thank Siri Nelson and the National Whistleblower Center for inviting me here. I think it's very important to highlight the critical roles of whistleblowers in promoting accountability and transparency in the age that we have the eroded public trust in our institutions. A little bit of a background about my education. I completed my undergraduate and postgraduate degrees in the UK. I did a Ph.D. in neuroscience and nanotechnology at the Imperial College London. And in 2015, I moved to the US working at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard on a project on technology development relating to genomics. While I was at the Broad Institute, I became interested in the field of microbiome. I was fascinated at the interplay of humans, animals, and plants in terms of shared microbial communities and ways that we could harness microbial communities for human health. In 2017, I attended an event at MIT Media Lab where I saw devices called food computers. Food computers are a term for the agricultural technology platform produced by the Open Agriculture Initiative of MIT Media Lab. They were promoted as controlled environmental units to grow plants. So the idea was to have various sensors and actuators to control temperature, humidity, CO2, and use AI to optimize conditions for the plants. And that could potentially solve world food security problem. So I was excited to see this device. I thought it's a great tool for me to test my ideas. And I spoke to several people at MIT, and I was eventually offered a position and became the research scientist and research lead for the project. By the time I joined, the project was already very high profile. There was a TED Talk with over 1 million views. There were millions of dollars raised from donors. Secretary Kerry made an announcement about deployment of the food computers to Vietnam to help Vietnamese with agricultural technology developed at MIT. And they were also deployed to Jordan with claims that they have helped Syrian refugees who fled war zones. And later it emerged that this project was specifically used to solicit funding from the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, which, as many of you may know, had many dealings with MIT. So after a few months that I started the project, I noticed that the promises that were made were not meeting the reality. Basically, they were unable to control the environment the way it was claimed. They were claiming that they could grow food 3 to 4 times faster. And the fact was that our team used to buy plants from the store and place them in the food computer, turn on the light, and showing it to journalists and potential sponsors as if they grew in the box. At some point, we had a visitor on short notice, and my colleagues jumped outside and just came back with a bunch of plants with soil. And I asked them, where did you get them from? They said, we got it from the campus ground. So I saw this as a big risk for MIT because I thought I'm working for an institution that is a top academic institution. So I put all of my effort to put processes in place to make the devices be close to what is being presented. So I put health and safety processes. I asked the group leader to refrain from engaging in media coverage for a few months, and also try to validate the system before we make further promotions. We're met with a lot of pushbacks and resistance. Eventually, I found out that in a facility MIT had north of Boston, where we had shipping containers in which we could grow plants because we had lights and there was a closed box. We were dumping thousands of gallons of chemical fertilizer solutions into a well that was connected to the sources of drinking water. And these fertilizer solutions had nitrogen way over the legal limit. At some points, it was over 1,000 times over the legal limit, toxic for human and the environment. So I sent an email about this concern to the health and safety officers of MIT, including my boss. And within a few minutes, I was removed. I was told I'm not allowed to send any more emails without review. Within a few days, I was put on a performance improvement plan. And I was told I'm not allowed to leave my desk. I was prohibited from interacting with my collaborators and also speak to MIT sponsors. There was another event similar to the ones that I attended the year before. So because of the sustained pressure, I was like, these pressures lasted for several months. I had to go to hospital a few times because I had to report, like, I don't know if I mentioned this, I had to report every 30 minutes what I'm doing on a sheet. And I decided to hire an attorney because I thought it is important for the leadership of MIT to know, because at the time I thought they did not know. So my attorney wrote letters to MIT Office of General Counsel, which reports to the president, and explained the situation. Instead of focusing on addressing the serious concerns I raised, MIT lawyer called my lawyer and said, good luck to my career if I decide to sue MIT. Eventually, my appointment was terminated, and I was very concerned about the chemical discharges, and I contacted the state regulators to see if MIT has become compliant. And after speaking to the regulators and examining the public records, it became evident to me that not only MIT was willfully misleading the regulators, they continued the chemical discharges. And we had like a lot of funding. It didn't have to be like that. And it was very surprising to me that the MIT Office of Health and Safety was helping the leader of this project to mislead the regulators of Massachusetts. And the paper that I tried to prevent from publishing, it was submitted to the journal, it was published, and MIT heavily promoted it as some sort of a scientific achievement in their influential MIT Technology Review, MIT News. It was published in the World Economic Forum website, Boston Globe, Daily Beast, and the leader of the project was promoted to a permanent appointment. So the concerns that I have are mostly about unfortunately, the MIT administration, the MIT Office of Health and Safety, and MIT Media Lab. There are so many people who do great work at MIT, and I consider myself a member of that community. So after I saw that going through these avenues is not getting any kind of traction or attention in terms of fixing the problem, I decided to speak to the press, and it was only after multiple news reports in the New York Times and elsewhere was published was that MIT was compelled to shut down the project. After the news, the TED Talk, the TED media organization removed the TED Talk for not meeting their scientific standard. The scientific publication got retracted by the journal, and MIT received a fine from the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Agency. It was a small fine for dumping cleaning and disinfectant solution. So the effect of dumping chemical in that site is still unknown because nobody has tested the water. And yeah, so eventually I decided, I mean, before I go on to the next section, this has had a huge impact on me. It was a very isolating experience, and I feel that MIT, unfortunately, is like as a trusted institution. They have breached the trust. Our politicians, our society have so much. They rely on the information that comes from this institute, and there is no proper oversight mechanism. And unfortunately, they have. As an organization that receives hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayers' funding, and as a non-profit organization, I feel that, yeah, the same, maybe similar type of protection that is somehow applied to government employees should be applied to institutions like this. So I currently have a lawsuit against MIT to seek justice and accountability for the matters I brought forward. It has been very difficult to seek proper representation, and I would appreciate anyone's help to, because it's not something that can be done by one person. And in terms of the policies that I think maybe could help to prevent this from happening in the future, I mean, one thing I'm concerned about is that on the board of MIT Corporation, we have the governor of Massachusetts who is responsible for implementing the laws. We have the Chief Justice for Massachusetts. We have the Secretary of Education. And I think their presence on the board of institutions such as MIT is a conflict of interest. It doesn't benefit anyone, and it's a disincentive for the law enforcement or organizations who may want to look into wrongdoings when it takes place over there. And another point is, like, I think there is an issue with NDAs. I think scientific institutions should be about transparency, and I hope that, I don't know if there is a possibility to have some sort of a mechanism to prevent these institutions to sign NDAs. As we have seen with the Harvey Weinstein story, NDAs are used to protect the guilty. And unfortunately, there hasn't been any accountability from what I have seen at MIT, and some of the people, individuals in charge of, involved in the processes I was involved in, they either got promoted and even went further. And the questions we should ask ourselves is that, do we want people involved in the policy making who are involved in misconduct? Thank you.